I'm delighted to say, to help us look ahead to that game at Old Trafford, having won there for the first time in 15 years earlier in the season in the League Cup. West Ham travel to Old Trafford on Saturday afternoon for a 3 o'clock kickoff. I'm delighted to say that joining us is sports journalist, all-round good guy and Man United fan, Matt Beadle. Matt, thanks for coming back on the show again. Brilliant to have you. Always interesting talking to you about football in general even, but Manchester United in particular. Strange season. The Red Devils sit 7th at the moment in the Premier League. Played 20, 32 points. West Ham played 22, 37 points. So a huge game, really, for both teams. If United or West Ham could really sort of lay down a marker by making that gap between the two teams even bigger, with United still having the games to play. What's your thoughts generally on the season so far? A bit of a tumultuous time at United. Rangnick coming in, Ronaldo. It's all just roller coaster stuff as usual, isn't it?
What a question that is, mate. What are your thoughts on Manchester United's season? How do we answer that? Difficult. I think we're on the march, mate. We're on the march with the godfather of the Gegenpress, aren't we? Tell you what, Ralphie's army. Don't look back, fellas.
One fortunate win against Crystal Palace on day one, and then since then, the enthusiasm seems to have died out somewhat, mate.
Yeah, it's tough. It's really tough. And I don't know. I've been on this show a few times now, and it's always been Ollie that has been in charge in that time. And you've always asked me what I wanted and whether I was satisfied with Ollie's progress as a Manchester United manager. And I always was, to an extent. It became untenable, I think, towards the end of his time in the hot seat. But now, I don't know. It's really tough. I think you'll speak to most Manchester United fans who will have a similar opinion on the fact that we've got another interim manager until the end of the season. So you have Michael Carrick as an interim, and now you have an interim manager until the end of the season. And regardless of what we can say about 4-2-2-2 and the fact that he actually changed it for the Aston Villa game and had a modicum of success, I suppose, in that with Bruno being adopted in the role that we knew him and loved him when he first arrived at the club. And you can talk about the results, which, I suppose 8 games now in charge, 4 wins, 3 draws and just 1 defeat. So
yeah, but look at the goals scored, mate.
Scored. Yeah, of course, and I completely agree.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Is it 2 games out of those where you've scored more than once?
That's correct. Yeah, Burnley and the recent game against Aston Villa, and we'll get onto Wolves, no doubt, I'm sure, in a minute. But the issue, I think, first and foremost for me, is just the fact that, and this has been spoken about quite extensively in the media and various reports from players being disgruntled at what's going on at the training ground, but you've got an interim boss until the end of the season. It's very, very hard to exert authority among a group of top elite athletes when they know you're only there until the end of the season. And yes, he's then due to be at the club in some kind of capacity for another 2 years. But even that alone, you look at it and go, what kind of deal have you struck here? I think when I first saw that United had appointed Rangnick, it almost felt to me like the bigwigs, who we know have been a bit of a shambles over the course of the past, 7-8 years now, ever since Sir Alex Ferguson and David Gill left, looked at the Premier League and went, Klopp's done all right, hasn't he? Tell you what, Tuchel's done quite well. Where are they from? They're German bosses, aren't they? Have a look and see there is. Well, that guy, Rangnick, yeah, bring him in. He'll do the same job. And it just seems still so shambolic from all the way with the backroom staff of the club and now, unfortunately, onto the pitch.
Do you think that it's because it's easy, isn't it, to get hooked into short-termism as football fans? Everyone does it. West Ham fans are doing it at the moment. They're calling for massive transfers in January, and definitely we need bodies. But it's the same call that's been going on for the last however many transfer windows. But Moyes has been looking at it macro, and we're making improvements on the bigger picture. Do you think, football fans never want to hear it, but do you think United's hierarchy have written the season off and they've got someone elite lined up be it a Pochettino, that seems to be the name fairly popular and one that's wheeled out quite often. Do you feel that they've just got someone for the end of the season and it's almost a case of riding out the inevitable media storm of Man United struggling for the rest of the year, and it doesn't really, it's sort of like the season's a write-off already? Or do you think that's a bit naive because realistically you could still get top four?
I don't think when you are a club of Manchester United stature that you can just write off a season, especially when, the bosses look at the commercial revenue that being in the Champions League can bring. And that's not something you look at again at the past 7-8 years or so, especially with Ed Woodward's reign, which is coming to an end, of course, in what? A couple of weeks? 1st of February?
Yeah, 1st of February, Richard Arnold takes over. But then Richard Arnold's just Woodward Mark II, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. That's part of the problem. He said some funny things over the years as well. I mean, a lot of fans took exception to the fact that he said he was delighted with the phenomenal success that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was bringing to the club. I think what did he say years ago? George Clooney's. He said we had 25 George Clooney's in the squad or something to show what a commercial appeal that Manchester United have. And when you say stuff like that, football fans look and think, you haven't got a clue what you're talking about, mate. Why are you talking about George Clooney? Not got a clue. Same with Ed Woodward. I remember in his first, sorry, I'm going off track here slightly, but I just want to,
crack on, mate. Crack on.
His first summer, that ridiculous summer in 2013, and I think the club were in Australia, maybe, or South Africa or something. You saw David Moyes at the time look like a deer caught in their headlights because it was just like, what is going on here? And Ed Woodward left. Pretty sure he left that tour citing some urgent transfer business that he needed to get back to England for. Right. What was that then? Because nothing happened until way late into the transfer window. And you brought in Marouane Fellaini. So I think a lot of fans realised what kind of character he was going to be. But no, I don't think that they can just write the season off. Whether they have got a successor lined up already, maybe if it's Pochettino. I've always been in the camp of what's he won? Didn't even win Ligue 1 with PSG. So
could you, though. But yeah,
the jury's still out on me. Still out on him, sorry, for me with that. And there are reports to suggest that they're even going to think about having someone ready before the season is over. So I don't know. It's not working so far with Ralf Rangnick, but then 8 games in, it's just very, very difficult. And again, we go back to this Gegenpress, this 4-2-2-2, and it's difficult to implement a style. But then, I mean, he's alluded to the fact that when Jurgen Klopp first came in, it took him a few months to get his system going at Liverpool. Same with Pep Guardiola, not particularly successful, not successful at all in that first season. Thomas Tuchel hit the ground running in the Champions League. Okay, that's fine. So there is an argument to say he needs to be given time, but then by the time he's had that time, the season's over.
Time's up. Yeah. It's a bizarre one, isn't it? Sorry, James, I know you wanted to come in.
I was going to say, just quickly on the Rangnick thing, there's been a lot of comparisons about like how long it takes to get the players into his style of play when you compare him to like Klopp and Tuchel and Guardiola, like you just said. But if you actually look at his record as a manager, he reminds me a lot like Marcelo Bielsa, where he's he's not actually won anything of note, but he's regarded as this like sort of philosopher of football, as it were. Actually, when you look at his
doesn't
record,
bring any trophies. Yeah,
like I just checked it. He's won 2 Austrian titles and a German Cup with Leipzig, I think it was. But other than that, he's literally just won nothing. But then there was such this hype, and do you think that's where United have gone wrong? Is they've believed in the hype rather than actually just stand and go, no, like we're a massive football club. We're the biggest club in the world. We need to just do whatever it takes to get the biggest managers in the world.
Yeah, completely agree with you. I completely agree that I think sometimes this hype comes from figures within football, and you'd say that perhaps they know what they're talking about, considering the fact they're in football. But I'm with you on Marcelo Bielsa as well. I think there is a lot of hype about Bielsa, and with Rangnick, you're missing a trophy, I think, by the way, and this is one that's very close to the hearts of West Ham fans.
The Betway Cup?
I think he's an Intertoto Cup winner, fellas.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah, I think he
might
is.
have won the Betway Cup with Werder
I'm checking it out now.
He won the Intertoto, yeah. Stuttgart, maybe. But we're talking about a manager as well. We're looking at Hodgson-esque levels here. He's been managing since 1983. So he's in his 5th decade of management now. So the fact that he spoke about the Wolves game and United not adopting his press as they should have done, we're 8 games in now, and you'd think that if this is someone who is considered, like you say, a philosopher, the godfather of the gegenpress, isn't able to instill his system into a team 8 games in, you are slightly concerned about that. And you're also concerned about the fact that...
particularly with the calibre of players he's got.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And apparently they're not happy on the training ground. And that leads to... we can have a discussion about Chris Armas as well, his assistant, who's come in, of course, from MLS. And I do believe that, we're not professional footballers, but I'd imagine you speak to most pro footballers, they respect people who have done well in the game. It's a bit different now because you are getting the likes of managers like Tuchel, like, going to Football League, Mark Walton, who didn't play professional football, but do garner the respect of their players. But I think that also comes down to man management too. But Chris Armas is someone who has had 2 failed stints as a manager in MLS football. He spent his whole career in the US. And when that guy rocks up at the training ground at Manchester United, you've got Cristiano Ronaldo there thinking, who on earth is this guy telling me how to play football?
Yeah.
And that's what I worry about. And the fact that I don't think in the 8 games that he's been in charge so far, he's named an unchanged side. And again, you've got to figure out the best team that suits the strategy and the system that you want to play. But at some point, you've got to go, this is the team I'm sticking with, and this is where I'm going. It reminds me again, and I'm sure I've said it on this show before, about the fact that it was a running joke between my mates and I with West Ham a few years ago that you could just never, ever name a West Ham starting 11. If you went into any weekend and said, right, what's the starting 11 going to be? No idea. When you had the likes of, all those players, Gökhan Toure and Razvan Rat, and those years, and you thought,
Sofiane Feghouli et al.
Yeah, where are they playing? When are they going to play? How long are they going to be at the club for? They seem like completely pointless transfers. And I just think that he needs to go, right, this is my team. This is what I'm sticking with. If it doesn't work immediately, then at least I'm working on a system. I'm working on a process that will hopefully...
But you can't, mate. All of that sounds so sensible. Excuse me, but it's all just undermined by the fact he's off in 4 months. Yeah. It's just silly. It's almost a waste of your breath and our breath talking about it, isn't it? Because and all this gegenpress, and it's totally right? Players need transitional times. That happens when players arrive in the Premier League. They need time to transition, some more than others. And when new managers come in and try and impress new styles, that happens, right? It's particularly given that Man United didn't really seem to have a style under Solskjaer. But it just all seems so futile. It just seems absolutely ridiculous especially trying something that's such a big leap. You'd almost think you're better off just, look, I'll make some small improvements when and where I can. That might be a little bit quick, and you might see a little bit of an improvement in the squad or in the side. Because by the time this huge wholesale change that I'm trying to instill takes root, I'll be off, and then some other new bloke. You either need that, or they know that the guy they've got lined up, which could prove to be a stroke of genius, is also a master of gegenpress, which is an absolute another phrase that's come in that I hate about modern football.
Well, it goes back to that way that we seem to have to play football now. And I think Pep Guardiola is responsible for this in many ways, especially the possession-based football. That it filters all the way down, doesn't it? You go into League Two now and you see these teams that want to play out from the back. They want to play a specific type of football because they look at Pep and go, well, he's playing like that. That's how we've got to play. Yeah, that's fine. We saw when...
You're Oldham Athletic, mate.
Yeah. FA Cup, and they tried to play like that. Well, you don't have the players to be able to play like that, and not when you're playing against top level opposition. And I agree with you. The gegenpress is like, well, that's the way we've got to play. Let's get a manager who can play that way, and it should have the players who can play that well, but play that way. But we're also saying this is a manager that stepped onto a training ground that seemingly has become a bit divisive as well. And you asked me the last time I came on here as to what the signing of Cristiano Ronaldo would mean for Manchester United. And as much as I hate to say it, and I hate to admit it, that it has had, I think, unfortunately, a negative impact. You look at his stats, I think it's 14 goals that he scored this season. So on paper, very good. But Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, prior to signing Cristiano Ronaldo, had a plan. He had a plan with Rashford on the left, with most likely Sancho on the right, Cavani probably playing in through the middle. Cavani would step out every so often. Mason Greenwood would come in. And then Cristiano Ronaldo has come in and completely disrupted that. And you've seen it with the likes of Rashford, with the likes of Greenwood, Cavani not looking a patch on the player that he was before. And I think the Wolves game was really significant for me, that on the hour mark, I think the only player who looked like he was adopting this gegenpress was Mason Greenwood. And he was the player that got substituted. And Edinson Cavani and Ronaldo were the two players that stayed on for the full duration. And you thought, what is going on here? And that reminded me a lot. When I watched that Wolves game, it reminded me a lot of Louis van Gaal's tenure, which for me was utter dross. And even more so now seems to be replicated in Rangnick's obsession with fullbacks and chopping and changing them. We've seen Taylor's in, we've seen Dalot come in on the right, we've seen Luke Shaw back in, we've seen Aaron Wan-Bissaka back in. He doesn't seem to know what his best fullbacks are. And that was the same with Louis van Gaal. It's ridiculous in his tenure. I think if you were to look back at his final season or his second season at the club, the number of changes he made at fullback, and it was almost like a given. Around 70 minutes, you knew that he was either going to introduce Matteo Darmian, Timothy Fosu-Mensah, or Cameron Borthwick-Jackson at some point. He couldn't make his mind up. And you thought, is this where the problems are at this club? Fullback. Ridiculous.
Happy New Year from our friends over at Manscaped. It's that time of the year when we all commit to changing something in our lives for the better. So why not turn to Manscaped to ensure your grooming is on point and the best it can be throughout 2022. As New Year's resolutions go, pledging your commitment to your male grooming routine is the least you can do. And Manscaped's Performance Package 4.0 has everything you need to ensure you don't drop the ball early on and remain consistent in keeping things neat and tidy all year round. And to help you get off to the perfect start, you can get 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com with the code WeAreWestHam. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com with the code WeAreWestHam.
Yep, the Manscaped Performance Package has everything to boost your below-the-waist grooming game, from the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer with advanced skin-safe technology that reduces cuts and nicks, the Crop Preserver, which is a spray that protects against chafing, and the Crop Reviver, which would ensure things down there remain fresh at all times. To top it all off, you even get a shed travel bag so you can carry all of your precious Manscaped products in style everywhere you go. Will, have you got any grooming-related New Year's resolutions knocking about?
Well, mate, as you know, we got our hands on the weed whackers earlier this year, and whilst I thought I was a bit too young for trimming nose hair, I had noticed a couple of rogue ones creeping out the nearer I got to 30. So yeah, that's my resolution this year: regular use on the weed whacker, and make sure those nose hairs are in check and there's no rogue ones creeping out for everyone to see.
Fair. Mine is just to be a bit more on top of it. I have the same New Year's resolution every year, which is just to be better at everything. And everything in that bracket, everything is maybe a little bit of fitness, work, parenting now. And now I've got another one, which is grooming. So I'm going to be better at grooming, self-grooming, below and above the waist. And the nose hairs definitely need to be done a little bit more regularly than they have been. So yeah, I'm with you on that one, mate.
Glad to hear it.
So to get your hands on the Manscaped Performance Package 4.0 and to see all the other top quality male grooming products they have available this new year, head over to manscaped.com today. And remember, get 20% off and free shipping with the code WeAreWestHam. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code WeAreWestHam at manscaped.com. Have no regrets this year with our friends at Manscaped. Yeah. Matt, before we move on to the game at the weekend, I wanted to ask you about Ronaldo. You kind of already answered the question that I had lined up in that, do you actually, looking back, do you actually think it was a good idea to bring him back to the club? But I wanted to ask you whether you actually hold him sort of partly responsible for the current issues that they're seeing in the dressing room, because, you look at Ronaldo and look at what he's achieved in the game. The likes of Greenwood and Rashford should be looking up to him and going, I want to do things the way he does things. And do you think that actually his influence in the dressing room and potentially even on the training pitch are kind of having a negative effect? Because you see his arrival and you go, is it going to be a good thing? Is it going to be a bad thing? It has to be a good thing because the young players at United, who are very, very highly rated and have bright futures in the game, should be learning off him, and clearly they're not.
They should be, and that was one of the positives that we all thought there would be of having him back at the club. No one knows what goes on at the training ground. We don't know what's happening behind closed doors. We don't know what's happening in the changing room after the game. But what we do see is Ronaldo running off the pitch instantly as soon as the final whistle is blown. We see him with his arms up in the air, gesticulating at players who aren't delivering the ball bang on exactly where he wants it. And we also see the likes of Marcus Rashford, who has had a face like he's chewing on a wasp for the past, I do not know how many seasons now. Whether something else is going on with Marcus Rashford, I don't know. He's 24 years old now, and he is so frustrating to watch. I think United in their attacking department, when you look at Anthony Martial, he's another topic altogether, and Marcus Rashford, have two of the most frustrating players in English football when you consider the ability they both have and what they're just not producing or haven't been producing in the past few seasons. And who knows what impact Ronaldo is having on the training ground. He posted this week, I think, didn't he, on social media about winning being the five-a-side winning team, and Paul Pogba was in it. And again, that's another conversation altogether. And then blew up and Ralph Rangnick's a liar. Paul Pogba's training. He doesn't want him in the team. He's just come back early from training, from injury. Yeah. That's all that is. But I don't think, I agree with you, I don't think Ronaldo has had the desired effect on the players that we probably would have hoped.
But he's got to be he's a role model, isn't he? Not just to fans, but he should be a role model to the players. And you mentioned it there, him throwing his arms up when he doesn't get the ball or runs off the pitch straight after the game. That's immediately sending a message to the rest of his teammates that he's not a team player. And yeah, it baffles me that there are still fans out there and even neutrals that go, "No, it's still best thing United could have done was bring him back." And it's like, well, if he's showing he's not a team player, I mean, he's never really been a team player anywhere he's been. He's always been the main man. But in situations like this, at his the club that he's come home, seeing his club in complete and utter disarray on and off the pitch, you'd think he might, being Cristiano Ronaldo, might actually step up and show why he's regarded as the greatest player to have ever lived.
But he has,
in some people's opinion.
But he has, though, hasn't he? So don't you think, Matt? Like he has done. He's
not done that at United. Yeah, he scored the goals, but he's not showing them. He's not showing the rest of his teammates like this is how it's done.
But what do you mean? He scored the goals.
He's not adopting the system that Rangnick's trying to instill. He's not showing right now.
He never will, though. He never will, because
this is why we've got to do it.
He scored the goals.
But he has, like I said, on paper, stats-wise, 14 goals this season for the club. He has produced. So in some ways, you look at it and go, okay, well, it's been successful. But then, has it been successful for Cristiano Ronaldo? And the stats that when his career eventually comes to an end,
you'd be out of the Champions League, wouldn't you, Matt? Without him.
Yeah, he's come up with some important goals. Of course, he has. But it's like I said, I think that the players obviously looked at the start of the season, before he had arrived, that they were working. You look at that opening game of the season against Leeds, phenomenal. You thought, okay, here we go. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer clearly had a plan which may have worked without Cristiano Ronaldo joining the club, but there were still gaping holes in defence. We still got Victor Lindelof there. We still got Eric Bailly there. Rafa Varane. And you look at the business in the summer, Rafa Varane coming in, that should have been an incredible signing, but that hasn't quite worked out. I mean, he's had injuries, but there are still huge gaping holes in United's backline, and the McFred partnership still isn't quite there. I love Scott McTominay. I think he's absolutely brilliant, and I think he could be a top midfielder for years to come. But it's just who you pair him with. And again, the way the system has worked with the 4-2-2-2, and then switching to a 4-4-2, kind of a flat 4-4-2 against Burnley, and then switching up again against Villa with a 4-2-3-1 showed that Bruno Fernandes, when in the position that he likes to play, is pivotal to the way that Manchester United play. And I just think, it's very easy to say, right, you have your marquee man and you do everything around him. But I think that's the way that it works with Bruno Fernandes.
Listen, Matt, we've got intriguing stuff. We go on for hours about this. I just think all of the stuff shows, doesn't it? If you look at your Man United's main competitors, supposedly Chelsea, Manchester City, and Liverpool, all of them are so much more streets ahead, more stable than Man United are. They know their best players are. They know the system they want to play, and they just go out and play it with the players they've got every week. And everything seems to be done on purpose for a reason, in their own styles, of course. But Manchester United just seems like there's no one who's got a clue what's going on, who's ever been involved in football at the moment, which is obviously a real shame for us neutrals to see. There is a game coming up, Matt, this weekend, as we've mentioned already, Saturday afternoon at Old Trafford, West Ham v Manchester United. Looking ahead to that, you've touched briefly on suggestions and systems and stuff. How do you see that playing out style-wise and selection-wise ahead of that game?
It's a great question, mate. Because who knows? Who knows what he's going to do? It was interesting to see Anthony Elanga come in, actually, against Aston Villa and have a pretty good game, I think. And a lot of United fans will be happy with that. I think any Premier League fan, you ask any Premier League fan, we love to see kids play. You love to see youth. And again, that's a greater conversation for the shambolic nature of these COVID call-offs that have occurred over the course of the past few weeks. How teams can not play on a Thursday, but then suddenly have a team capable of playing an FA Cup against the lower league side a few days later is beyond me. I think you're exploiting a system there. But do you know what? I just want to quickly say something else when you talked about the nature of on the field matters. It's replicated off the pitch as well. I alluded to it earlier, but we talk about Richard Arnold coming in. I quickly, before we came on, just jotted down the titles that I'm aware of at the club so far in the backroom staff on the board, for example. So Richard Arnold's coming in as Chief Executive Officer, right? That's taking over from Ed Woodward, who was the Executive Vice Chairman. You've got John Murtough there, who is the Director of Football. You've got Matt Judge, who was previously, I think, involved in head of recruitment or something to do with transfers. He's now heading up the transfer negotiations or whatever it may be. And let's not forget Darren Fletcher, who is the technical director. You've got all these titles, all of which none of us really know what they mean. But at what club, and you mentioned those top clubs there, Manchester City, Chelsea, Liverpool, Spurs, at what club does a technical director sit on the bench in a tracksuit like Darren Fletcher's been doing over the course of the past few weeks? I don't understand what his role is now at the club. Why is Darren Fletcher in the dugout? He's the technical director. He should be eating his prawn sandwiches in the boxes with whoever else it is. But that's what seems so strange.
He's getting closer to getting his boots back on, isn't he?
I can't get my head around it. And then you've got Mike Phelan, who's just propped up against the United badge at the side of the pitch going,
good here. Yeah.
And again, it's said that he's the one who's trying to soften up the players and make sure they're all okay with this other fella, Chris Armas, who's come in. But what's he doing there? It's really, really difficult. And I think, again, you ask a lot of players and they probably would say, we quite like Michael Carrick. And if he'd stayed until the end of the season, that would have worked. But Carrick quite rightly was like, doesn't feel right to me because I'm loyal to Ollie in a way. And I think I should probably step out as he steps out. So to go back, to your question about how Manchester United are going to line up, I'm not afraid to say I don't really know. I'd give Phil Jones a run, if I'm honest.
Richard Arnold in centre mid.
Came in against Wolves, had a decent game. Much prefer him over Victor Lindelof. And I'd like to see Jesse Lingard play, which is unlikely, but probably because he's going to move on. But I don't really know what he has to do to get a game for Manchester United now, other than coming on for the last 2 minutes. It's ridiculous.
Don't know what he has to do to get sold either, to be fair. Why haven't you sold him yet?
Well, probably say that he wants to go. He hasn't done anything towards making anything happen, has he? He didn't last in the summer either. I don't think
he loves the club. I think he clearly loves the club. He wants to be a Manchester United player, and I think that it was primed for him when he came back from the very successful loan spell he had with you guys. that he was going to do a bit this season, and he was doing a bit. Scored a great goal at West Ham. He made an impact in the Champions League game against, was it Villarreal, with the last minute winner. He's played relatively decent when he has played, but clearly Rangnick doesn't fancy him. All the fans are constantly calling for Donny van de Beek as well, but I would look at that and say Ollie clearly didn't fancy him. Carrick didn't utilise him in his 2 games that he was in charge for, and now Rangnick's come in and he's not playing him either. So they have to be seeing something on the training ground that doesn't warrant a starting spot for Donny van de Beek. And I'd love to know what all the United fans that are constantly singing his name have seen in Donny van de Beek, because I haven't really seen anything so far as a Manchester United player. And yes, he was good for Ajax. He's been good for Holland. We know that. But in the time he's worn a Manchester United shirt, it looks like he's a fan who's won a prize to play for Manchester United. That's the way it looks at the moment.
But talking about West Ham this weekend, we're on the back of a disappointing defeat, disappointing performance. Is there any part of West Ham that particularly worries you ahead of the game at the weekend?
Declan Rice does, whom I think at the moment is Footballer of the Year without a shadow of a doubt. I think how old is he now? 23,
just turned 23. Yeah,
he still qualifies for Young Footballer of the Year, right? PFA, so he'll probably get that.
You can win that at 28, I think, can't you?
yeah. Declan Rice, I think, is just an excellent footballer. Jared Bowen as well is intriguing me. I asked a good mate of mine who's a West Ham fan at the start of the season that I wasn't really sure about Jared Bowen. My feelings were I wanted to ask him, and this is something that only West Ham fans can answer, and close onlookers of West Ham over the course of the past couple of seasons that he came into the club. And my question was always, what's his role? What's his role in this West Ham team? Because, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, when David Moyes brought him in that January, he'd been banging him in for Hull, right? So I thought, okay, he's signing a goal scorer. And that didn't really, come to fruition that he was an epic goal scorer. And I didn't really know what kind of role he played for the side. And then this season, he's shown me, because he's quite clearly got a lot of quality, although couldn't find the back of the net. And I don't know why he's chesting that ball in the final seconds, or chesting it over, I should say, against Leeds. But yeah, clearly those 2 players. Mikel Antonio actually always worries me because of his unpredictability. But it's Declan Rice for me. He's the one that worries me as a Manchester United fan. And I think it's games like this where Declan Rice can actually really step up and say, yeah, I'm a top level player, and this is where I'm going to boss it. And of course, if he does, all the chat's going to be about Manchester United signing Declan Rice. But I think we have to be honest and look at Declan Rice and think, why would he want to come to Manchester United at this moment in time?
Yeah, I think if he's going to leave, the team who by far and away need him the most and could afford him is Man United. Just screaming out for him. If you look at I know you singing the praise of McTominay there. I mean, it just completely baffles me that people think he's even in this. Yeah, in the same league as you got Kante and Jorginho, and then even like Thiago doing bits at Liverpool is superb, and then obviously at City as well, Rodri is just elite level. The fact that people talk about McTominay and expect people to take him seriously when that's where Man United want to be, and they think they're going to do it with a player of that caliber, is baffling. But if he's going to go, I would have thought from a football perspective it would make sense for him to go there. But he could walk into I don't think he walks into Chelsea's team, to be fair. City probably, like the new Fernandinho, whatever, but that's a conversation for another time. Matt, it's been brilliant having you on. You're obviously not too jovial about Man United at the moment. What are you saying, though, this weekend, your score prediction?
I am going... I can never predict that Manchester United will lose a football match, so I will say 1 apiece, because I don't think we will get a victory, and I think that West Ham will bounce back from that weekend defeat to Leeds. So I'm going to say 1 apiece.
1 will be lovely. Jonesy?
I mean, I would definitely take a point, but I think Matt's right. I think we will bounce back, and I'm fancying. I think we'll win 2-1. We've won there already this season in the Cup, and I'm going to back a 2-1 win.
Yeah, I mean, haven't done it For 15 years, one at Old Trafford, and then you fancy like the London buses two come along at once. I got absolute pelters this week for saying that West Ham would beat Leeds 4-0 at home. My Twitter mentions have not been a great place since that result on the weekend. But yeah, I'm weirdly confident again. We've had that weird habit, haven't we, this season? Before we beat Chelsea, I think I don't know if it was we lost to Brentford before that one. And then we drew at home with Brighton and then beat Liverpool, didn't we? So
something like that,
yeah. We've sort of, whenever we have a naff game and a naff result that no one expects, we normally blast out the blocks in the next one. So yeah, I fancy we'll nick it as well. I'm going to go 2-1 as well, Jonesy. But Matt, it's brilliant having you on. I'd like to say I'm sorry to hear about the woes at your club, but I couldn't be less sorry if I tried, I don't think. But yeah, it's brilliant having you on again. Matt Beadle there, sports journalist and Man United fan.